Good morning, and we're about to head over to one of the royal palaces here in Stockholm called Drottningholm. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's about 40 minutes by train. You actually have to take the metro to a stop called Drottningholm, and then from Drottningholm you have to take a bus. So it takes about 40 minutes total. You just make sure you want to take the right train, because there's a couple different trains that the first one that we saw to come through stopped before the station that we needed to go to, so make sure you get on the right train. So thanks for Melissa for watching out for that.
I'm a pro metro user.
Yeah, so we're real excited to get to Drottningholm because it's one of the really cool royal palaces here in and around Stockholm. It's actually inspired by Versailles, just outside of Paris. Really quick train ride over to this stop called Drottningholm, and now we have to switch to a bus. So hopefully the bus is easy to find.
I think it's just right outside that station.
I hope so. This is the bus here, so really easy, just outside the station. There is a sign, so you can take a variety of buses, so just download it on Google Maps and do the directions, and there's a few different ones you can take. Really nice and easy. Bus ride was like 5-6 minutes. The train was quick.
No, it felt like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was really quick. So efficient transportation system here. And literally, the palace is just back there. Today is Saturday, and it's actually surprisingly calm. There's not. I thought there would be more people here, but there's not really. There's also a restaurant on site, so you can have food here as well.
Or fika.
Or fika. We might do that actually. And there's actually a few different ways you can get here. You can actually get here by ferry or boat as well. So I think it just lands up here, but I think it's like something like $25 round trip.
But I read that they serve you food on the boat. It's a one hour boat ride, one way.
Oh, really? Huh.
That's what I read.
If it includes food, that might be worth it. You want to go down there and see if we can take a photo? We just learned that the word Dronning is actually Swedish for queen. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. So Drottningholm is the Queen's Palace. So this was, the original one was built in 1576 in dedication to one of the queens. And then a lot of this was reconstructed after a fire in the 1700s, late 1600s and 1700s. Very impressive. So they have 3 main sections here in the palace. So you can obviously tour the palace itself, inside the palace, and they have gardens. As I mentioned, they were inspired by Versailles, and then they also have a Chinese pavilion as well. So it's actually quite a large property, so we're going to start here inside the palace. The palace has 2 stories, and actually this palace was largely constructed in the mid-1700s when one of the queen's husband, the king, passed. She built this, or renovated it, and she was going to move here, and then the fire started like 4 hours after she was going to arrive, and then basically she rebuilt this whole thing. It took like years and years, so this is what it looks like now. Drottningholm Palace is actually where the royal family lives today. So a small portion of the quarters is actually reserved for the royal family. So they live here full time, I believe. Whereas like the most of the historical area is a museum and allows visitors. So we've been walking through the upper floor of the palace here, and there's actually quite a few rooms, what they call drawing rooms, dedicated to military conquests. What do you think of the palace tour?
Kind of looks, if you've been to one palace, it's kind of all the same.
Yeah, like all the 1700
Yep.
era palaces all look the same. Melissa's been to Versailles, so you were telling me that Versailles is like much bigger compared to this one?
It's huge. You can be in there for hours.
Yeah, but does it look the same as Versailles? Like similar, like interior wise?
Yeah, they all look.
So basically, palaces depict, there's a lot of paintings, especially on the ceiling. There's like tapestries and old furniture, and basically
And then
that's a
murals
palace.
of battle scenes.
Yeah, basically. So
And portraits of
the king, the royals.
yeah.
So yeah, pretty interesting. Very cool spot to come. But I think the gardens is where most people say this place is actually pretty impressive. So we're walking around the gardens here. Pretty impressive, except they could use more flowers, at least in this section up here. What do you think?
Why are you so picky?
Not picky. You hear gardens and you think flowers instead of shrubs. What do you think?
Why don't you tell them that they need to plant some flowers?
I will. I will write them a comment. I'll leave them a suggestion box comment. So the gardens here are actually quite large. We've been walking around for about 30 minutes now. It's really beautiful, especially the views back towards the palace. And then we're in this like further section now, which basically becomes like a forest park. There's like a Baroque garden. Finally read the map. There's like a Baroque garden. There's an English park, which is like back there, which is like a huge section of the park. There's a Chinese pavilion back here, and then there's just like more here. So a lot bigger than I thought. I thought it was just gonna be the main section in front up there, which is really nice for pictures actually. So we took some nice photos. It's been a really good few days here. Like the weather, you can't really complain about the weather. Like no clouds for the whole time we were here. Perfectly sunny, 70s. So what do you think? You like it?
I agree with all the things you just said.
So that behind me is the guards tent. So what you see is actually a facade which has been restored, but it was created by one of the kings here. But behind there used to be the guards barrack. This behind me is the Chinese pavilion, and I'm gonna read you guys what the sign says here. So the first Chinese pavilion was a surprise gift for Queen Eureka on her 33rd birthday. King Adolf brought her here, and from the pavilion came a Chinese prince. So, and from the pavilion came a Chinese prince who was Crown Prince Gustav. What do you think that actually means? I learned something quite interesting on that sign actually. The royal family, the reason why this Chinese pavilion is here is because on the grounds of the palace there were hunting grounds, right? So old royal families would have hunting grounds, and they put this here to be closer to nature and closer to the woods and the hunting grounds, so they would have a place to rest and hang out before they went back to the castle or the palace. Hey Melissa, what do you think the Chinese prince reference is referring to?
I'm not sure. The way they wrote it makes it seem like they bore a child that was part Chinese.
Comment down below. Do you think the Chinese reference means that the crown prince had some Chinese blood?
I agree. The gardens could use some flowers. It's a little bare. I think the Chinese pavilion's pretty cool, even though we didn't pay to go inside.
How much would it have been to have gone?
60 krone.
Yeah, crowns, I guess.
What's funny about this Chinese pavilion is it's not that far from the actual palace, so it's kind of unnecessary, but when you're wealthy, you just build.
If you're a royal, you just go ahead and build
things.
stuff.
Yep.
And plus, you were saying earlier that, you know, because of the whole like garb that they have to wear, it takes a while to get back to
It's true.
the palace. I think it's worth it to me because I've actually never been to a palace that had gardens in it. I was just thinking, I don't think I have because I've never been to Versailles or anything like that. I've been to castles before, but I don't think I've been to castles where they had like a huge garden like this or anything. So it was pretty cool for me, and it's easy to get to. It's like really nice and easy and convenient to get to on the public transport. So yeah, if you have a few extra hours here in Stockholm, I would highly recommend coming because it's different for sure.